So let's work through the last three. We'll talk through those. And then let's end with maybe just a conversation about why is it people have myths in general, in terms of why are we just looking for excuses to not go?
That's it right there.
Type of thing. Because at the end of the day, to me personally, that's what I feel like. People will latch on to whatever thing that they think works for them just so that I don't have to go to a therapist.
We're very good at rationalizing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I figured we can kind of end the conversation that way. Does that sound all
good.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm game.
Welcome, everyone, to the Palm Valley Church Podcast, where we invite God into everyday conversations. My name is Mark Groh-Hockey, and back again, of course, we have Dr. Jennifer Bellingrodt with us today. Welcome back. This is part 2 that we're doing. I mean, we started this conversation about the myths about mental health and why I shouldn't go see a counselor. So you had this article that you wrote, and you had so many great myths in there that I think really kind of flew in the face of anyone that was trying to use excuses to not go to counseling. And so we started the conversation about that. I just wanted to continue that on. I think there was so many more great myths of why people don't go to counseling or to see a professional in that. So I appreciate your wisdom in this, and I appreciate that you are willing to share all of this. So
Thank you.
Do you still enjoy being a psychologist and meeting with people? It's like is it a passion of yours?
It is. Specifically, since I work primarily with personality disorders, there's never a dull moment because these folks are really entrenched in their thinking patterns. And when you can be that person who says, you know what, your life doesn't have to go this way.
Yeah.
I don't know, I find that really exciting.
Yeah.
I'm a nerd that way, so.
Well, it's good because the thinking patterns really are what play into these myths. Our thinking patterns almost create these myths.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I think it's what I loved about your article that you wrote is it really is talking to each and every one of those thoughts that we grab a hold of and run with because it fixes or solves something in the moment for us, when in reality it may be the most damaging thing that's happening in our lives. So,
unfortunately, yes.
yeah. So let's jump into this. So the next myth that we have here is therapy is just voodoo and conflicts with my religion. This is the one that I think the church is always wrestling with of, God never had a therapist, or whatever other excuse they want to throw out of. Maybe we don't see counselors in scripture or something. They like to throw this out. So how do you, as a person of faith, how do you combat this myth?
Well, I think those of us in the field of psychology, mental health, counseling, we've seen magical transformations in people, but therapy is far from magic. It's hard work, and it's a lot of investment and a lot of looking inward and getting in touch with thoughts, feelings, those kinds of things that are working against you. It's not supernatural. It's not a pagan endeavor. There's no voodoo. I don't have any dolls in my office. We're not doing any of that stuff.
Right.
Part of what I do is I incorporate a person's spirituality into the therapy, actually. As part of my intake process, I ask every person what their spiritual beliefs are, what their faith practices are. And then we incorporate that. I've prayed with patients. I've prayed for patients, so it's definitely in there. And if you're worried about that, I think you can just seek out a list of Christian counselors. My office actually maintains a list of Christian counselors.
Yeah.
So, we can get you that information if you want to make sure that you're, on that right path.
Yeah. So I had a friend in high school who really loved magic and doing magic tricks. So he studied up on it, and within like a few months, he was like running his own magic show in that. How long have you went through school and training to get to where you're at today?
Starting in kindergarten, 20 years. My bachelor's degree was 4 years, and then the doctorate was another 4 years.
Yeah.
So 8 years.
Yeah, so you've spent some time crafting what you do, learning about what you do, studying what you do. It's one of those things that for people that think this is just a quick magic trick that we learn in a book or anything like this, it's far from that. You've had lots of training. You've had lots of practice and experience. I'm assuming you had a long internship of people watching over you or pouring into you as you were starting out in this field. And then over your many years of practice, you've learned all kinds of stuff that continue to help you in this. It's one of those things that is far from a quick magic trick in anything, that there is very real science that goes into all of this and very real study that goes into all of this as well. As a person of faith, how would you encourage people to say, this is actually a really good thing to have a counselor in your life? Like how do you think God works through you into your clients' lives?
Well, I really think every single day he gives me the words to say, because I think this is what he called me to do. So I think he's going to give me the skills to do it.
Yeah.
And that has proven true I've been doing this for 20 years. So, so far so good. He's got my back. So I think that it's a matter of, I'm going to try to meet the patient where he or she is, and try to explore, where they are in their spirituality. Some people come in and they're like, nope, not doing it. I met with an atheist last week, so these things happen. Doesn't mean I'm giving up.
Right.
But, some people are open to exploring it and some people aren't. Just meeting them where they are, finding out what they believe. Sometimes we end up kind of taking a bit of a detour and exploring the faith and spirituality. And I love that because it's an opportunity for me to educate people about, salvation, because a lot of people don't know about that.
Right.
Or the whole book of Romans, actually, that talks about, grace and not works. And so a lot of it becomes education if people are open to it. So just making sure that you know where they are. Yeah. And then helping them find those next steps. And outside of that, I think it's just God is sitting in my office every single day. Yeah. Thankfully.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming you pray for your clients, whether it's with them or before or after a session or at the end of the day. So, I mean, God is a part of all that. I mean, it's everything that we do with this podcast is about saying, hey, we're going to have conversations about everything that's happening in life and really just start to notice where God is at. He's in all of this. And so many people are like, as they work through, whether it's a physical health and that they're so quick to jump on what a doctor does, but not understanding therapists are right there as well. And that God is using them to walk through whatever they may be dealing with in life. And to consider it something as trivial as a magic thing, voodoo thing, or that God isn't a part of it, it just couldn't be further from the truth. So I appreciate you having your faith and bringing it into your practice, whatever it may look like.
Oh, I couldn't do it without it, because there are things that I've heard and things that I watch people walk through, and if I didn't believe in God and that there was a much larger plan that I can't fully see or appreciate, I really don't know how I would do it. I mean, the things that people go through are horrific, some of them. Yeah. So just knowing that there's a bigger plan and someone else is in charge, I find that very much a relief.
Oh, yeah.
And if patients ask me, at the end of a session, if they say, pray for me, or could you say a prayer that XYZ happens, the minute I sit down and start doing my progress note, I pray right there because I will forget. So I sit down, do it right there. So it's there. God's there. He's listening every single day, all day.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. All right. So next myth. If I go to a counselor, they're just going to give me some pills to take.
Well,
I mean, there's almost multiple things in this of, number one, thinking the only thing you do is throw pills at people, but then on the other hand, also discounting potentially the benefit of medications as well. So how would you speak to both of those?
So the thing to know is that if you're seeing a psychologist or a therapist or a counselor, we don't prescribe.
Right.
I have no prescription pad in my office, and I don't prescribe any kind of medication. I'm not licensed to do that. There are psychiatrists and psychiatric providers, medication management providers who take care of that. So if you're going in for talk therapy, just talking through your problems, you're not going to get a prescription. Yeah. That's not how that works. And that's an important distinction. A lot of people don't know the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist.
Sure.
And we're both working on your brain, but the psychologist is talking to you and the psychiatrist is prescribing medication to help regulate the chemistry of your brain so that you're not entrenched in whatever patterns you have going on.
Right.
So that's the first thing to know. Outside of that, I don't always recommend medication
Sure.
for people. Over, doing this for 20 years, you start to see where when someone comes in, you're pretty sure that they probably need a little bit of chemical help to get them out of whatever position they're in so that they become more in touch with reality or less depressed or less anxious so they
Sure.
can think clearly. But my recommendation is pretty conservative. So always start with therapy.
Right.
And then if you need medication, I will honestly tell you what I think. Listen, don't listen, it's up to you. I work with a number of different providers, and I can recommend all sorts of things. So there are not just prescription medications, but different supplements and nutraceuticals that or metaceuticals that will work to help. And then in certain cases, medication probably is the way to go. So for instance, if you're looking at bipolar disorder, it's going to do you good to talk with someone and look at coping skills for managing urges or mania or those impulses that come with that. At the same time, bipolar disorder can be really unpredictable. So, and it's because it's based largely on a chemical shift in the brain over which you have no control.
Right.
So the chemistry behind that is we get some medication on board and it regulates that chemistry, and then you're better able to think clearly, make good decisions, those things. OCD is another one, obsessive compulsive disorder. So there's a large chemical component to that, and medication can help regulate that. And then we're still talk and walk through coping skills. Sometimes with OCD, you can see early patterns for how this person was kind of primed to move in that direction. So the point is there's still plenty to talk through.
Right.
If you are on a medication regimen, it's still recommended that you are talking to a therapist.
Yeah.
So if you're taking medication for depression or anxiety, there's still plenty for you to be talking through about, one, how you got there, and two, how to get your head out of that space with looking at different coping skills and all the self-care, sleep hygiene, you name it, all the things that go into that.
Yeah, I think that's such a huge point for people to understand, that if you come to the place where medication is probably a good next step for you, it doesn't mean, okay, I'm done with you, so just go take pills and we'll never have another conversation. But no, the medication is actually something that helps to regulate you to a place so that conversations can actually happen, so that you can actually think clearly through steps in life. It's something that assists you in what's going on.
Yeah, that's an important point, because I've had people in my office when I get to the place where I think medication could be helpful and I recommend it.
Sure.
I've had more than a couple people like tear up and say, so I'm not going to talk to you anymore, or you're sending me to somebody else? Yes and no. Yeah, I'm going to call in a colleague and hopefully they can help regulate some of the chemistry. But, oh, no, we're not done.
Right.
No, you still get to come back and talk through things.
Yeah.
So that is an important distinction.
And do you work with the psychiatrist in that? Like if you have a client of yours that is starting medication, do you have conversations with them to say, hey, here's what I've noticed, maybe they need to adjust it? I mean, do you have those types of conversations with other professionals that you're working with?
I do. And part of that, I mean, obviously I'm not a psychiatrist, didn't go to medical school, but I've been doing this long enough to kind of see patterns and see what's helpful. And because I work with personality disorders, that's a unique specialty.
Sure.
And I have colleagues who treat personality disorders, and they have found specific protocols for treatment, medication management that work really well with the different personality configurations. And so I will have conversations with them about, hey, what about this? Or how do you feel about this? One of the providers I work with, she's like, I don't even have to tell her. I just tell her what the diagnosis is, what I'm thinking, and she's on it.
Yeah.
Because she works a lot with, we share a lot of patients.
Yeah. So it's almost like the two of you are a team with that person.
Correct.
Rather than just random individual people that are trying different things, not ever communicating with each other.
Right. And I like to talk to her because she answers all my questions, because like I said, I'm a nerd, so I have a lot of questions, and I want to seek to understand and for my own information, but also then, of course, to be able to help patients in the future.
Sure.
And she's very willing to answer any questions I have, and just very, very smart. And so we have a really good dynamic between us where we are a team for those patients.
Yeah. So let's combine the last question with this one. What about those people that are saying, God doesn't want me to take pills. That can't be a good thing. That can't be something God would have for me.
That's tricky because, sure, you could argue that, it's a synthetic thing and he doesn't want that. It's not a naturally occurring thing, so I'm not going to take it. But, ibuprofen isn't a naturally occurring thing either, and we take that if we have a headache.
Right.
So I think that's just another reason to stay away from medication that could really help. And I tell people, look, if you don't take my word for it, go see my colleague, get another opinion. If you don't connect with her, that's okay. We both have thick skin. You're not going to hurt anybody's feelings. I don't get a kickback if you see her. Like, it doesn't work that way. So keep trying to find someone you connect with. But I think that there is a place for medication. I guess it's just because I've seen it, in 20 years, I've seen it do nothing short of miraculous things for people.
Right.
And it doesn't work for everybody, and not everybody needs to take it. But I don't think it's fair to say that, God doesn't want us to take pills. I don't know. that just strikes me as odd.
It seems like it's the very thing that God has continued to, as He's created us and created amazing and gifted people that have actually brought us to this place in society where we have medical technology and we have medicines that actually can assist and help in so many ways. And it's not a step away from God or a lack of trust. It's actually a benefiting from God being at work in great people. And so it's what I love about that. It's what I love about you talking through of, it's not going to be my first go-to thing, but we're also going to say that this is an option, that this is something that if you're getting to a place where life is just not even manageable and we can't even have a conversation, medication is something to actually be open to and see how to use it. So
I think it works well just to knock the edge off of whatever emotional intensity a person is caught up in so that they can be more grounded and more in touch with reality. And when they're talking to their spouse, they're not, personalizing everything or seeing everything through depressed or anxious eyes or what have you. So I think that's how I talk with a lot of people about it, is it's just going to knock the edge off of your intensity so you can do the work that you need to do.
Yeah. It's almost as if you got your wisdom teeth pulled, you take the pain medication so that your body can heal. The pain medication isn't the thing healing you. It's so that you can actually function to heal in this.
Right.
And so it's what I love about that, but that's good. So our last myth here, no one can actually understand what I'm going through.
Well, another tricky one because yes and no, right? Like I've walked through things in my life that you haven't walked through. And you haven't walked a mile in my shoes, nor have I in yours. So can I understand exactly what that's like for you? No more than you can understand exactly what that's like for me.
Right.
But in spite of the fact that you're the only one who's ever gone through your exact experience, human emotionality is universal. So we all experience the same basic emotions: mad, sad, glad, afraid. There are plenty, but they're just basic emotions that we all experience. So maybe I haven't walked through exactly what you walked through, but I did walk through something else that made me feel anxious or sad or what have you. And it's just that commonality, that universality of human experience that we're working from. And then maybe I haven't been through exactly what you've been through or helped someone through just exactly what you've been through, but I have helped someone who came in and had depression like what you're in for, or anxiety or whatever. And so I'm going to share with you the things that worked for that person.
Well, and we keep coming back to almost that same analogy of, if I broke my leg, I'm not going to go find a doctor that made sure he broke his leg too.
Right.
Like I don't need him to have that experience. I need to know that he's a professional and I'm going to step into that.
Right.
I think, Jennifer, at the end of the day, all of these myths are excuses that people are latching on to. So why would you say people are even just coming up with myths? They seem to we're trying to find reasons to not go Why is that? Well, what's playing behind all of this?
A few things. So one is it can have to do with the scripts that they have in their heads. It's kind of like racism. You know, if someone is racist, a lot of times that comes from how they were raised, what their experiences are. You don't just wake up at 40 and go, I'm a racist now. You know what I mean? It happens insidiously over time. It happens that these ideas get into your head. So some of it can be like that, where it's a function of your experiences, your upbringing, the culture that you live in. That's one of the things. I would say another big one is ignorance. And not ignorance, not to be confused with stupidity. Ignorance just meaning a lack of awareness.
Yeah.
So it's like these myths that we're walking through. People have heard these things or whatever, and they've not done anything to combat the ignorance or get the truth that flies in the face of the myth. So not being aware, they roll with, again, the scripts in their head and what they have. I'd say probably the biggest reason that could underlie all of these is fear. So we're afraid.
Yeah.
Whenever you're being blocked from something, that's about fear. And it generates self-doubt. And so if I am afraid to go seek mental health treatment because I'm afraid that when I tell the therapist what's gone on in my life, he or she isn't going to know what to do, or they're going to think I'm weird, or they're going to think I'm terrible or a horrible person. They're afraid. They're afraid of what they're going to find out. But the truth is always better. So knowing what it is that you're up against is always better. And when you're going to a therapist, especially one that's been in practice for a while, there's not going to be much they haven't heard. And so get over that idea real quick, because that is just absolutely not true. And again, even if I haven't walked through exactly the same thing that my patient coming in has, we're going to talk through the thoughts that go behind it, the emotions that go behind it, and we're going to come to a place of understanding. So I think fear is the big one. A lot of people don't want to know what they don't know. But
it's amazing. I love how you bring up that fear. I think fear for so many people out there, it's almost the driving force in their life. I won't do this, or I won't go here because I'm afraid of whatever it may be. I won't have this conversation because I'm afraid of this. I won't state this to my spouse because I'm afraid of this. I won't say this to my boss or coworkers because of, fear seems to drive everything.
It really does.
Are you seeing that a lot as for new patients that are walking in, new clients?
Yes, I think it's pretty well universal. Like I said, anytime we're blocked from something that's good for us, or that could make us feel better or be a better person or have better relationships, these are good things that lie in front of us. These are opportunities. And so if you're being blocked, then to me, that's fear. And again, you got to tell Satan to get behind you. Don't let him get in there and cause you to feel self-doubt. You are beautifully and wonderfully made. Go and learn how to make yourself function even better and feel even better. Don't let that fear get in your way.
Well, and it seems like these scripts are created, or these narratives are created out of fear. That fear is almost telling us these things, so we believe these scripts that have come from fear as truth, and we're operating that way, which is creating a whole new world of just problems, really.
It is. And I think secrets, that's a big one. So a lot of times, if someone's been abused or something like that, they were told to keep it a secret. A lot of times they were threatened that if they didn't keep it a secret, bad things would happen to them or people around them. But however they got there, they've been conditioned to keep this secret. And secrets are incredibly destructive because it just plays in your head over and over and over again. And then you feel like you can't tell anyone about it because they won't believe you, or they'll think something's wrong with you, or you brought it on yourself, or just the scripts that play in your head based on a secret. So secrets cause a lot of fear for people.
So what, as we close here, what is maybe your one last push to people to encourage them to seek professional help?
I would say you have to look at what's going on in your life. Try to step outside yourself, look at what's going on, and see where it is that you're being consistently blocked or running up against significant or consistent problems.
Yeah.
So if it's in relationships, for example, you have trouble in your marriage, or maybe you're having issues with your coworkers, maybe you've lost a few friends, maybe it's time to step back and say, okay, maybe I'm the common denominator. Let me just go check that out.
Yeah.
I would say just look at it as a consult, like if you were building a house.
Yeah.
So you're going to go and talk to an architect. Or if you were redoing your backyard, you're going to talk to a landscaper or whatever. It's just a consult. It doesn't mean you're going to go with that home builder. It doesn't mean you're going to go with that landscaper.
Yeah.
But just get some information, because maybe there are some things you haven't thought about.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think confronting these myths is a huge thing for so many people. So I appreciate that. And for everyone, we can provide all kinds of resources for you. So please reach out, let us know. Jennifer, thank you so much for continuing to share your wisdom. And of course, we'll look forward to the next time you come join us as well.
Thank you. I love coming. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. You bet. So thank you, everyone. And have a great week.